Well, let's get on, because I'm interested to find out how you're actually going to solve all these
How
problems.
does it map?
Well, again, so netting all that discussion, and we'll talk about the CIO view of this. Well, if that was the kind of CEO, CFO view on previous chart, this one is really the kind of net in terms of our research, the analysts' current data around what are the key kind of areas that we want to help, start to solve some of these considerations and these concerns. So around the focus around business process, critical in terms of, most of the service-oriented kind of projects that we get involved with these days are bounded in the context of a business process scope. So that's a key driver in terms of how we drive innovation forward. Collaboration around the people efficiency component, how the teams involved are best mobilised to become more efficient, and how we exchange data between those parties in a trusted way, in a way that respects all the requirements on the business process integrity that needs to flow. And then ultimately, if you can then pull the trick off of combining those three aspects, process, collaboration, service orientation, to drive genuine changes to the business model in terms of its agility component, then that's where you start to get much more profound in your ability to drive business performance. And so again, that's the kind of end game that we're trying to, as part of the how scenario.
Jon, is this new for people who are watching this?
Is it new? I think the thing that's new is bringing everything together. As I said before, we're very, very good at taking something and running with it. I mean, an example, I was talking to a colleague yesterday about knowledge management, and half of my career I've wondered what the heck anyone was talking about with knowledge management. But fortunately I work with people that understand this stuff. But the fact is, it doesn't mean anything. But it meant something to a very select bunch of people who took it, they ran with it, they philosophized about it, they developed creative things about it that still no one understood. And that's a fantastic thing that we're very good at in this industry, to take something and turn it into absolute gobbledygook. And in fact, if you look at the kind of business process side, business processes are all about, when you understand what you're trying to do, you want to put control into it, you want to make it as efficient as possible. Collaboration is all about this is a collaboration session. When you're working with people, you're trying to make it as effective as possible, make people innovate. Very much getting the balance between the two. Service orientation is all about understanding that we're actually trying to deliver a result. So what is the service that's trying to provide? What's the service I'm trying to provide to you, that IT is trying to provide to me, that the business is trying to provide to its customers, etc., etc. And there's a service hierarchy that descends through all the process of collaboration. Of course it's all joined up. The danger, the difficulty that we've faced in the past is that we haven't treated all of this stuff in a joined up manner. Which is the problem. I mean, and that, if anything, I'm just glancing at the clock here, we're halfway through this session, that defines the problem statement, if you like. So the rest of this session is very much on, so what do we do about it?
Better be a simpler answer than the question.
Well, let's hope. So to an extent, it comes back to what I mentioned before about getting your house in order. And rather than, right, okay, let's have yet another initiative, it's how can we know what the answers are. These things are pretty much set in stone in terms of process, in terms of service, in terms of collaboration, etc., etc. No one's come up with anything over the last 6 weeks that said, actually, it's not about any of that stuff at all. It's about a whole bunch of different stuff. So some of this stuff was defined in the 80s and 90s. What has happened in the past decade is now it is all worked out. The hooks have all been put into how it can all work together. So moving away from the bottlenecks that all of that stuff in the past have caused, removing the hurdles, getting rid of the stuff that's causing the problems, getting stuff to talk to each other, becomes an integration issue, becomes an interoperability issue in the software layer, getting your BPM stuff to talk to your applications, getting your SAP to talk to your Exchange, getting your Lotus to talk to your etc., etc. That's the big job at the moment. And here I've said IT as a bottleneck. How can we reduce those bottlenecks and deliver IT as a foundation? That's a law of diminishing returns, obviously. But most organisations, they could look at what are the 20% of applications that everyone uses that deliver 80% of the business value. Let's focus on them first. Let's get them all working far better together. Let's get IT as a foundation delivered. And from there, it then goes into, we've made it as efficient as we can. From there, it goes into, okay, we've started to earn the right, we're more trusted by the business. How can we actually then build upon that and turn IT into something that is actually responding to new needs and new requirements and making the business more effective.
I see what you're saying, but that hard work of making everything everything just work. I got that, yeah. I mean, that's been, the experience of, I don't know, ERP, for example, has shown that, what sounds like a very nice idea in a meeting turns into 5, 6, 7 years of really hard, unpleasant work.
Yeah, and that kind of strategy doesn't work any longer, does it? Clearly, we've gone down that path. Business has been burnt in the past, and so now it's about, okay, how do we repurpose, reuse value in all those things that we've invested in a way that actually gets closer to meeting the business in the middle around what is the services that actually matter. So what's at the core of what I'm operating as a business? What's at the core of what makes me special and unique, and what are my USPs around differentiation? They're the things that where it's worth investing some more dollar, in terms of IT change. Otherwise, the IT guys can just burn cycles and burn resources and burn money and not really be positive in the outcome for the business point of view.
So you're saying concentrate on the stuff that's been fixed already?
Or concentrate on the stuff where the business, you can determine with the business's help where you can actually drive the most value. So the next picture is really around this kind of, I think it's the next picture, my storyboard, right? Is this kind of notion that if you've got a different set of characteristics as a CIO or as an IT leader inside the business, what you want to try and do is obviously find ways to expand your business impact. And whereas you may be driven, and business is responsible for this dimension as much as anyone else is, you may be asked to relentlessly cost cut, for example. Find ways to take out costs. That's what we want you to do year on year end. And that's different from saying, okay, what can we do intelligently in that process to find ways to turn it on its head and look at value rather than just pure cost. So the kind of return on investment piece is much more a conversation that's richer for the CFO to work with the budgeting around IT projects, for example. So again, every step of the way you want to try and find ways, and it's easy to say, not always easy to do, and we recognise that. So the good news is, in terms of the how, there's real methodologies around this, there's real best practice, there's real methods, tools and products that can help this process.
I'm looking at this slide, Gary, and the things that are along the bottom, which I'm assuming you're saying are not the things that you should be.
No, I'm saying...
They sound like the things that get people jobs in IT and get them to keep their jobs.
What I'm saying is that all those things are absolutely necessary and actually very resident in the CIOs that I talk to. You need all those attributes, you need all those characteristics, but it's basically finding ways to blend those together in a way that's pushing towards the right to say, overall, actually what you want to do is IT needs to be seen as an enabler for positive change, and it's actually improving the business impact.
I think one of the major changes, and you hinted at it, Gary, that we've seen in IT over the past 5 years, following the .bomb probably, was I can remember meeting with an IT director 6, 7 years ago, and I think it was one of the last instances of this happening. If you still see this happening, then let us know. But his boss, he was the CIO, he'd been given by the CEO a copy of something like CEO Weekly or Management Today or something like that. And it had a big article about probably CRM. I think it was CRM, but it could have been something else. And the boss had circled the article and written, "When can we have one of these?" and chucked it on his desk. And it's this kind of, it was this idea from the non-technical side of the business that IT could just be, it was this kind of magic bullet mentality. What we got in the .bomb was no more magic bullets, end of story. IT is not just going to work in that way. And the debate has moved, no one is saying, well, I saw a recent attempt around cloud computing, which we're not going to go into, but this, when can we have one of these attempt, you get your articles posted, but no savvy board these days is saying, when can we have one of these? What they're saying is, how can you sort it out? And that's an opportunity as much as anything to sort it out.
Well,